This week on Vaticano, take a closer look at the newly unveiled mosaic of Pope Leo XIV in the Basilica of St. Paul outside the walls. Can faith help guide AI? We'll talk with founder of Magisterium AI about the pros and cons of this fast-growing technology. We'll also sit down with Archbishop Georg Gänswein, former private secretary to Pope Benedict XVI. Stay with us to explore the meaning behind the coats of arms of church prelates. For this and more, Vaticano starts now. In keeping with the tradition that accompanies the election of every pope, a mosaic bearing the portrait of Leo XIV has been installed in the Papal Basilica of St. Paul outside the walls. The Vatican team worked for a week to place it in the space next to the portrait of Pope Francis, in the right nave of the Papal Basilica, at an approximate height of 43 feet from the basilica's floor. It will rest alongside the portraits of all 266 other popes, beginning with St. Peter, the Apostle and first Pope. This tradition goes back to the 5th century, reaching the pontificate of Pope St. Leo the Great. However, the portraits were not always made in mosaic. They were originally created as oil paintings on canvas or wood, which were then hung in the naves of the basilica, as Father Roberto Regoli explains.
The mosaics of St. Paul, which originated under Pope Leo the Great, lasted until 1823, when a great fire destroyed the entire basilica, and only about 20 were preserved. Among these is the mosaic portrait of St. Peter. It is therefore a technique that is still used today. It is demanding and requires a great deal of work, but in terms of preservation, it has proven very successful.
The mosaic tondo, with a diameter of more than 4 feet and the weight of more than 300 pounds, was recently presented to the Holy Father, and he didn't hide his appreciation. The portrait was created based on a painted preparatory sketch by Master Rodolfo Papa at the Mosaic Studio inside the Vatican. Over 15,000 tessere, or square tiles, were set with the traditional oil-based mastic of the Vatican tradition, using glass enamels on a metal structure.
It is the same material that has been used for centuries in the tradition of the Vatican Mosaic Studio, the very same mastic that was used to set the original mosaics in St. Peter's Basilica.
The image of the Pope, the product of the efforts of a 3-member team, is an almost perfect likeness of the original figure, capturing the very expression on his face.
An enormous number of enamel tesserae were used, precisely because even in the face alone, there are hundreds of shades of flesh tones that were used to replicate the Holy Father's complexion.
The mosaic was prepared for Vespers on the occasion of the Feast of the Conversion of St. Paul on January the 25th. Known for his joyful faith and tireless service to the sick and the poor, St. Pier Giorgio Frassati has moved hearts around the world, especially among the young. Inspired by his witness, a prayer group in Switzerland set out to bring his story to the screen. Released just 4 months after his canonization, Ein Leben für andere, A Life for Others, was first presented at the Pontifical University of the Holy Cross in Rome.
It's a movie that tries to get some essential themes about the life of Pier Giorgio, especially his love for all the people. We can mention his family, we can mention the poor, we can say also politics, the young people, his friends.
St. Pier Giorgio Frassati's story is told primarily from the perspective of his sister Luciana, with Swiss seminarian Nicolas Koch portraying Pier Giorgio.
It was so cool to get to know a person who is extraordinarily normal. And that's so inspiring, because I think sometimes, at least for my life, I try to make extraordinary things. But I saw in him, wow, it's not always needed to make extraordinary things, but especially, to do them with love.
The screening was attended by Pier Giorgio's niece, Wanda Gawronska, as well as Father Juan Manuel Gutierrez, whose miraculous healing from a completely torn Achilles tendon, attributed to the intercession of St. Pier Giorgio Frassati, served as the final miracle needed for his canonization in 2025.
I needed to spend months in rest and then physiotherapy after the surgery. And to have a full recovery will take up to a year. The fact that before 9 days this was gone, it was unexplainable. To see the surgeon who was supposed to do my surgery for the Achilles tear, and after he examined me, he said, well, there is no hole, there is no tear, and there is no need for a surgery anymore. And when he said to me, you must have someone up there looking after you, is when I connected everything, you know.
Father Juan hopes that all who watch the movie, which highlights Pier Giorgio's friendships, will be inspired not only by his bonds with others, but above all, by his friendship with God.
I always describe my relationship with Pier Giorgio as one of those friendships that come casually into your life one day, but they end up changing your life forever. He's a great friend and a great example to have, and that, I think that's what friendships should be, right? Someone who inspires you to grow more as a human, as a man, as a Christian, and I think Pier Giorgio is all that for me.
Can faith guide the future of AI? We'll take a look at Magisterium AI, the first Catholic artificial intelligence. AI can give you an answer to almost anything in seconds. But when you're searching for the deepest answers about faith, about God, who is actually answering? And when a machine can sound human and speak with confidence about right and wrong, the consequences are real. We went inside Magisterium AI, a Catholic platform that its creators say is built to lead users back to reality and back to Catholic magisterium, because what you'll believe tomorrow is being trained today.
I can assure you that the primary objective function of the secular models is not fidelity to the magisterium. And that's precisely what the objective function of Magisterium AI is. So those objective functions weight heavily on the ability to evaluate the model, but also in its capability. And so this is why when you're choosing a model for things like faith and morals, you have to be very cognizant.
The conversation comes as the Church continues to engage the global debate on artificial intelligence and ethics. In early December, speaking at a Vatican conference on AI and care for our common home, Pope Leo XIV said we're called to be co-workers in creation, not passive consumers of content generated by machines.
Governments and international organizations have a responsibility to design and implement policies that protect the dignity of minors in this era of AI. Yet, safeguarding the dignity of minors cannot be reduced to policies alone. It also requires a digital education.
The Pope warned that human dignity is rooted in the ability to reflect, choose freely, and love unconditionally, and that the world's youth, those most immersed in this technology, must be protected above all. And for some families, the danger isn't abstract, it's real. In November, Pope Leo XIV met with Megan Garcia, a Catholic mother who says her 14-year-old son died by suicide after an AI companion chatbot drew him into an emotional relationship that felt real.
Technology, how deceptive it can be, but not only deceptive, but like insidious, being able to do the most damage in like almost stealth mode, and nobody realizes it until it's too late. And then as a parent, then you're left with that gaping hole of what happened to my child? Like, how could this have happened? Why is there a product or technology that can do this in the first place? All these questions that you have to systematically like work through if you're able to, and sometimes you can't.
And it's why Catholic technologists say the response cannot be silence. It has to be formation, clarity, and tools anchored in the Church's teaching.
Never take what an AI says on faith alone. That would be my first piece of advice. Recognize that AIs are at this stage masterful in their manipulation of language. But that doesn't mean that they're right. And so when you are asking an AI question, particularly on things like faith and morals, and as Catholics we should be very concerned if the AI is deciding it's going to interpret the faith for us. We should always, I think, be looking to ensure that the AI is grounded in something the Church has either formally stated, that they're the ones providing the real insights, and the AI is simply passing them on.
But even inside Catholic circles, not everyone agrees on Catholic chatbots. In a recent essay, writer Mark Barnes argues the problem isn't only what an AI says, it's the form itself, the habit of talking to a machine, receiving catechesis through something that only generates answers probabilistically.
The AI shouldn't have to go to its own parameter data. So the knowledge that it was trained on in order to give it its capabilities, it shouldn't have to go and reference that data in order to answer the question. It should be relying on the source documents. And that helps prevent hallucinations and ensures that the AI remains aligned to our objective function, which is fidelity. That's not how typical secular AI works.
Sanders believes that Magisterium AI helps users answer all kinds of questions about faith. The technology can help write homilies, can act as a sort of digital assistant for clergy, theologians, educators, and laypeople to navigate thousands of church documents in an accurate way. And in order for this technology to learn, it has to be given as much information as possible, in this case, Catholic literature. The Pontifical Oriental Institute and the Alexandria Digitization Hub are dedicated to digitizing and making universally accessible the patrimony of the Church, with books carefully scanned to provide Magisterium AI with authoritative information on Church doctrine.
Like any tool, if we are responsible and we have the right formation, then we'll know how to constructively use it, when we should use it, when we shouldn't be using it, and I don't see it as anything but a massive unlock.
Looking ahead of this fast-moving technology, Sanders believes the next few years will be decisive.
What do you see 20 years from now? How will it be? How will it change our life in your vision?
If we as Catholics choose not to engage, if we allow the technocratic elite to determine how the technology is used, if we allow the transhumanist vision to take hold, it could unravel civilization. So I'm being dramatic, but I think the moment calls for a dramatic response. A large part of what the world will look like will depend on the choices we make really in the next few years, I think. So in some respects, I couldn't be more optimistic about the future. I really do think if the right choices are made now, that we have the possibility to unlock a real golden age for humanity.
As artificial intelligence continues to evolve, church leaders and Catholic technologists say the question is no longer whether AI will shape the future, but whether faith will help shape AI itself. For nearly 2 decades, Archbishop Georg Gänswein wasn't just Pope Benedict XVI's private secretary.
Speriamo Ratzinger.
He managed access to the papacy. He controlled the practical levers of a pontificate, deciding who the Pope would meet, who received a minute of his time, and who would never pass through the door. Archbishop Gänswein already knew about the Pope's secret decision in 2012, but the world would only find out months later. In February of 2013, Pope Benedict XVI resigned as Pope. Gänswein accompanied him into his new life, continuing to serve a retired Pope while also serving the new Pope and still holding one of the most sensitive jobs in the Vatican, Prefect of the Papal Household, the official who receives the world's most important guests before they meet the reigning Pope. Then came the final chapter with Pope Emeritus Benedict XVI. After almost 10 years at his side in retirement, it was Archbishop Georg Gänswein who administered the last rites as Benedict's health failed, and who gave him a final farewell. In 2024, Pope Francis appointed him nuncio to Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia. And now, with Pope Leo XIV in Rome, Archbishop Georg Gänswein continues his work for the Vatican under a third papacy. EWTN correspondent Rudolf Gehrig traveled to Vilnius in Lithuania, the Holy See's diplomatic post on Europe's northeastern edge.
Des Vaters, des Sohnes und des Heiligen Geistes. Amen.
Erzbischof Georg Gänswein, vielen Dank, dass wir heute bei Ihnen sein dürfen.
Archbishop Georg Gänswein, you have now been Apostolic Nuncio in Vilnius for almost 2 years. We can also look back on 9 months with Pope Leo XIV. What do you think about these pontificates so far?
Wie fällt das aus?
Vor allem hat sich auch atmosphärisch.
Above all, there has been a change for the better in the atmosphere, which I believe is important because the difficulties that existed have really taken on a whole new positive dimension with the change of pontificate. I consider that helpful. And for me personally, it is also a sign that faith and the Holy Spirit are indeed at work and remain active.
Wirkt und am Ball bleibt.
Wo ziehen Sie denn die rote Linie, wenn wir über Reformen sprechen?
When we talk about reforms, where do you draw the line? At what point does it go too far for you?
Da geht man einen Schritt zu weit.
Also wer in Fragen.
Well, anyone who no longer represents the Catholic line on questions of morality, ethics, the sacramental structure of the Church, or the official authority of bishops, that's where the firewall is.
Da ist tatsächlich der rote Strich.
Synodality remains an important topic for the Church.
Papst Leo hat ja vor 2 Wochen alle Kardinäle eingeladen zu einem Konsistorium, also zu einer.
2 weeks ago, Pope Leo invited all the cardinals to a consistory, a meeting in Rome. A number of cardinals first requested clarification of what synodality actually means. Unfortunately, there is still no clarification regarding the term synodality. And as long as I don't have any clear definition, as long as I don't know exactly what it means, it is also certainly difficult to talk about the desire to remain in dialogue within the Church, or to even start the dialogue. If synodality is just that, then it's okay. But my impression is that a lot of hidden demands are being concealed under the cloak of the word synodality, and that certain goals are being pursued that have nothing to do with synodality at all.
Synode und Synodalität überhaupt nichts zu tun haben.
What gives you hope?
Da sind wirklich junge Leute.
There are young people who have truly found meaning in their lives through faith. They live their faith as it should be lived, namely with a joyful heart. Faith is not a burden that adds to the burdens that life imposes on us, but rather a help to cope better. And we know why we are here in this world and where we are going.
hier auf dieser Welt sind und wo es hingeht.
Your Excellency, thank you very much for your time and for the service you do here for the Church.
Thank you so much.
We'll be back after a short break to explore the meaning behind the coats of arms of church prelates. Strolling through the streets of Rome, it's easy to get lost in the city's splendor. But if you slow down, if you look a little closer, you'll notice something most visitors miss. Symbols, tucked above doorways or etched into stone, telling a particular aspect of the church in front of you. These are the coats of arms. Each one is a carefully crafted piece of faith. The colors, the shapes, the symbols, they aren't just decoration. They're a language of devotion and personal identity. Father Antonio Pompili is the person who was entrusted with designing the coats of arms for the last two popes. For decades, he has devoted his life to this work, studying and preserving a tradition that might seem distant, but still speaks to us today.
La radica è fondamentalmente un sistema identificativo attraverso segni che chiamiamo.
Heraldry is essentially an identification system based on signs that we commonly call coats of arms, which are composed of colours and figures. This identification system arose from practical needs. It originated on the battlefield and later developed further in tournaments. In tournaments, it was necessary to identify the knight beyond the armour that completely covered his person. Initially, the Church did not accept this identification system. The first to make use of coats of arms were bishops, who were also feudal lords, and, like other contemporary lords, they realized that coats of arms were useful for seals and other small surfaces such as coins, because these bishops, who were princes, also minted their own coins. From there, it was a short step for bishops to adopt them for more widespread daily use. Certainly, ecclesiastical heraldry received its definitive recognition when at the end of the 13th century it reached Rome at the papal court. And when the first pope made use of a coat of arms, we are talking about Boniface VIII, who was also the first among the popes to proclaim a jubilee. The jubilee has just concluded. Well, Pope Boniface VIII was also the first pope to use a personal coat of arms.
Hanno indetto un giubileo, si è appena concluso il giubileo, bene, Papa Bonifacio VIII è stato anche il primo papa che ha utilizzato uno stemma suo proprio.
The coat of arms is full of meaning. Every color, shape, and symbol tells a story, reflecting the importance, history, and personality of the prelate behind it.
La parte essenziale dello stemma è...
The essential part of a coat of arms is, in any case, regardless of who holds it, the shield. The shield bears the figures and colours that characterise it. Then, depending on the hierarchical rank or office that the person holds, here we are speaking more specifically of the ecclesiastical realm, there will be different ornaments. For all clerics, the common ornament is a prelatial hat, a wide brimmed hat that can come in various colours. Very simply put, for cardinals, the traditional colour from the beginning has been red.
Semplicemente per I cardinali il colore proprio è fin dagli inizi il rosso.
For prelates who received episcopal ordination, such as patriarchs, archbishops, primates, or bishops, the colour is green.
Verde. Poi per I prelati della Curia Romana.
For prelates of the Roman Curia, it is violet red, and for all others, it is black. The hat is completed with two cords on either side, ending in a number of tassels, which varies along with the colour of the hat itself, depending on the dignity of the holder. The Pope is an exception. For centuries, he used the famous tiara, up to John Paul II, as the so-called stamp of the shield. The tiara belonged to the pontiff. Later, with Benedict XVI, it was replaced by a mitre adorned with 3 golden bands, recalling the 3 crowns, but clearly distancing itself from a meaning tied to temporal power that the popes had long since abandoned. The crowns of that tiara still gave the impression of a temporal authority that had by then become foreign to the papacy.
Ormai estraneo al papato.
Heraldry is more than it first appears. Each detail draws you deeper, turning the experience into a true treasure hunt.
Io parlo da Roma.
Rome is a city full of coats of arms. I don't know if there's any city richer in coats of arms than Rome. Certainly not. Just walking past the churches in the city centre, you can already see them on the facades. Usually on one side, the coat of arms of the reigning pope, and on the other side, the coat of arms of the cardinal, who is the titular head of the church.
Al di là di questo, pensiamo agli stemmi rappresentati in scultura.
But beyond that, think about coats of arms represented in sculpture, painting, or mosaics, both inside and outside the churches. And it's not just the churches. Heraldry has a universal use. Wherever we open our eyes, we see coats of arms.
Spesso che chi si rende conto della presenza degli stemmi, dal passare davanti a uno stemma senza notarlo, poi invece lo nota e come.